Welcome to the Avro Heritage Museum podcast, supported by Museum Development North and Arts Council England.
Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of our podcast. Visitors to the museum will know that we focus pretty exclusively on all things to do with Avro and its later iterations of Hawker Siddeley, BAE and British Aerospace Systems. But occasionally we glimpse into the wider world beyond Avro. A good example of that is our annual 1940s weekend each autumn, which looks well beyond Woodford's wartime airfield and aircraft production. At our 2025 event, our special guest was then 101-year-old Nancy Bailey. Nancy was a member of the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, or WAAF, during the Second World War. Established in 1939, WAAF numbers exceeded 181,000 at the peak strength in 1943. At that point, it meant that nearly 16 out of every 100 RAF personnel were women. Nancy was born in 1924 in what is now Tameside, the eldest of 5 girls. She joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force in 1941 at the age of just 17. After training, she took on a highly responsible role that involved managing wages, equipment counts, and maintaining accurate financial records. And her multiple postings took her the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. I met her briefly at the event last year in Woodford, but I leapt at the chance to have a more extended chat with her and to hear some of her amazing wartime stories from over 80 years ago. She insists that what she did was routine and very ordinary, but what you're going to hear in this conversation is far from that. There are dangerous times, even though on one occasion she was blissfully unaware of the jeopardy. There are reminders of how life still went on in wartime Britain, with young people still going to the cinema and to dances, although Nancy always seemed to find unconventional and alarmingly risky ways of getting lifts back home to the base. The moments remembered as exciting when, instead of a rail warrant to get you to your next posting, you got a lift in the back of a Lancaster. And there are sad memories evoked by another iconic wartime Avro aircraft, the Anson. I went to meet Nancy, along with her daughter Catherine, on a very wet Friday in February. Before taking us back to Britain at war, I asked Nancy to tell us her birthday and to share some memories of family life before she joined up.
31st of January 1924. I started school there when I was 3. Yeah.
What was primary school like in the 1930s?
They were very happy. I can remember when it rained. If you were one of the favourites, you were allowed to take the plants outside so they could get the rain. And I had a teacher. I came top of the class quite often. So every time I came top of the class, she'd give me 6pence. And that was a fortune then.
How old were you when you left?
14. I worked at a hat manufacturing place in Denton, and then I left there and I went to another place where I sewed buttons on blouses. And then I went to work in a chemist shop, and from there I decided I wanted to go in the forces, and the Air Force in particular.
Was there something that drew you to the Air Force?
Well, I had an uncle that was in the Air Force. I went to work in Ashton-under-Lyne. The Army had a branch there, a payment, for paying people and pensions and things like that. And then one day, this young lady came in uniform and she said, "We would like to sign you really to be in the ATS." So I thought, the ATS, no, I don't like that uniform. So I decided I'd go in the Air Force. So my dad had to come down to Manchester with me to sign that I was of age. And that was it, really. And I was off to Gloucester for about 5 days to get kitted out and things.
Reminders of the timing. Had the war started at this time?
Oh, yes. I was 15 when the war started. And from then it just moved quite quickly. Gloucester, Innsworth it was called. And that was the place you went to get kitted out and things. And then after 5 days there, I went to Fleetwood, I think it was. Yeah, and I did 3 weeks training, and this was in November, and it was cold. And then you call them blackouts at the time. They had these navy blue knickers and a top. I can remember that. It was bitter cold. We used to march through the streets. We didn't actually sit down, and not that I remember doing anything like that. But then when you decided, when you decided what you wanted to do, I mean, you signed up for that. And I was in equipment account. But then I was posted to Wales. I went to do the training in North Wales somewhere, learning different things because, I mean, it was just equipment accounts we did. And when people were issued with things, some things they had to sign for, some things they had to return when they finished with them. And then after the war, when they were coming back and they were supposed to return things like torches and, things that they could really return. But most of them had lost them, so I spent my time then doing a list, I suppose, just writing CWO on these things, certified, written off, So
they didn't ask for any money for them. I bet they'd.
No, they were just lost, or
So every single item, the torch would have a number on, I'm assuming.
Yes, you had to account for everything, So yes, it was. It was a necessary job, but that's one thing. When the war was over and people were coming back from, jumping ahead now, coming back from abroad, and I remember one young man coming in the office one day, and because I was equipment accounts, we kept on, I stayed on another year because I had to keep getting things straight, And this young man came in one day and he says, "Who wants a banana?" Yes, I want a banana.
So were you sort of keeping tabs of where the equipment had gone?
Yes. We did all the paperwork. They had the equipment department where the people got kitted out and things. If anything was wearing out, you took that in and got it exchanged. Well, we did all the accounting for that. We got all the paperwork and where it was coming from and who it was issued to and all this sort of thing,
And of course, it was all paperwork.
Absolutely. Nothing else. Yes, indeed. Everything was in a cabinet, And then, of course, everything had to be filed when you got all the paperwork in. And there's sometimes when you were busy, there was a pile you had to go and file. Then after that, I was posted to Evanton. That was 30 miles north of Inverness. It was a lovely place. I mean, I was there quite a while, but we were living in Evanton itself. We lived on the base, but at one time we had the married quarters because it was empty then apart from the RAAF. And we were billeted out, which was, we went to sleep, from the office, one of these big wagons with the flaps at the back, and they used to take us, in one of those back to this billet we were in, and the billet belonged to Eleanor Roosevelt's cousin. And then after that, I went to a place called Bishopbriggs. That was Glasgow, and that was a balloon centre. These big balloons used to have flying. I'm still doing my equipment accounts. I didn't work on the balloons. But I was there a while. And then we used to go to we used to go and see these plays and things that come on, and films as well. And then we went one day and I smoked then, and I went one day and it was there. It was on there. Anyway, that'll come to me in a minute. But I was, with the cigarette. They had a cigarette holder about that length. I think it was part of a pipe. And my cigarette rolled down and underneath the seats. And I was on my hands and knees, looking for my cigarette. After that, I think I must have gone. I was in one or two places in Scotland. Banff, I was out. That was near Aberdeen. Yeah.
So am I right, Nancy? Is each of these a different RAF base? So,
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And each base presumably has this body of people that has to look after the equipment.
Oh, yes. It's the same job I was doing. Yeah.
Obviously, this is women, isn't it? And this is to enable the men to go and actually take the war to Germany.
So,
we live in very different times now. I'm just wondering.
Oh, yes.
Also, that you're in the WAAF, so it's women, but you're in contact with men as well who are in service. How did you sense the men treated the women?
Oh, I don't know. Just the same as at home, I suppose. I mean, there used to be men and women working in the same office or whatever they were doing. And then they used to have dances up in the camp, in the evenings and this. And just go and dance and, have a laugh, have a reasonable time.
The only thing was you were only paid 2/3 of what the men got, but that was the time.
Oh, well, that was it, yeah. Yes, it's true, yeah.
So just reflecting back, there's a war going on. There are desperate times.
Yes.
What was morale like? Was there any point where you thought you might lose this war?
I don't think so. I mean, at 17, I don't think you think of things like that. You just go with the flow sort of thing. Yeah. I love Churchill. Yeah. He did inspire me. He inspired me. No, he was good. I mean, I don't know. Might have been a horrible person, but he gave us this boost thinking we can't lose this war, And I can remember one church service and the vicar said, singing this hymn, we'll sing this one, keep right on to the end of the road. That song, and I thought that was very touching, little things like that.
There must have been very sad times because people were losing relatives, weren't they?
Absolutely, yes. When I was at this place in Evanton, it was an air gunner school, and they came there for the last 6 weeks to finish the training. So they were up and round about just training with the shooting. I don't know how you train for that, but anyway. But we had quite a few funerals there. I mean, I've thought maybe they used Ansons, which were very old planes. A couple. I can't remember what the other was, but definitely Ansons. And they weren't maybe maintained as they should have been, or maybe they couldn't get the thing. I don't know, but they kept falling out of the sky, I suppose. And then sometimes on a Friday, they'd have this funeral, and the band, of course, in Scotland, they played Flowers of the Forest and all this, and that was very emotional. So, but, you just got out to get on with things. You couldn't stop doing what you did.
Although you were still on home territory, I mean, albeit in all over the place in the UK, you faced the same dangers as anybody else in.
Oh, absolutely. I was in Banff near Aberdeen, and I was posted to a place called Beccles in Suffolk. So I got on the train at Banff and I got down as far as Manchester and decided before that I would drop off there and go and see my parents, just for a couple of hours, which I did. And then I got the train again to Beccles, and I was absolutely shattered. And I went to bed, and there was quite, beds along. I mean, quite a lot of people in one hut and this. And I heard all this commotion, and I could hear people saying, "Is she dead? Is she dead?" And I just passed out. I was just so tired. I didn't even hear them strafing, they call it, out on the Nissen Holt. So you can imagine the noise that is. They used to get rid of the ammunition and things when they were going back, the Germans, and they shoot along this line of Nissen Holts and that, and I slept right through it. I said, what's wrong? Oh, she's alive, she's alive.
I heard a story about a Lancaster. What was?
Oh, no, we were moving from one place to another. This was in England, up in the south somewhere, and the bombers because this was after the war, and they took us from one station to another. Maybe when they finished at this one station, and we got in this thing, and you had to get. There was little steps things like this, and you had to sort of heave yourself up in there, Then there were no seats or anything.
You were also wearing sort of straight skirts.
Well, that's right, so... Yes, we sat on the floor, yes. And then when they were taking off, I can never remember, but I think this must be right. When we were taking off, we had to all go to the tail. And when we were landing, we all had to go to the nose.
So they were taking you to another...
Just to another, yes. Because, as I say, places were they only used in the war. They were closing. So people like me that was in a job that we had to stay, they'd take to another place and, get another group there. I think that was the idea. So, I mean, the bombing must have just been there, nothing to do. So they just flew us from one station to another at Cambridge. So I moved around quite a bit.
Another story I've heard is about getting a lift back from a dance. Tell us about that.
That's right. The only way we could get a lift back was on what they call it, on a bike. What's it called?
Crossbar.
Yeah. We had to sit on that and take us back to the camp.
That wasn't the story I was thinking of. The one I was thinking of was when you decided to stay for the last dance, so you missed the bus.
Oh, that was I think when the war had just finished, we went down, I think that was at Beccles in Suffolk, and we went down there and we had to march, and it was a hot day, and I can remember standing there with the hands at your side, and it was so tiring. I think we did that and marched around a bit, for a couple of hours, and then we were dismissed from there. We had to make our own way back to the camp. It wasn't that far, but it was far when you've been standing up all day and for hours, So this big, what do they call it, Bowsers, the big petrol thing, I suppose.
Bowser, you've got exactly the right word, yeah?
Yeah, and so there's no room in the cab, so a couple of us, the struts that we were saying between the cab and the Bowser thing, that fastens, that's the back of the cab, you know what I mean? Yeah, so two of us stood on those struts. Things, I wouldn't dare do it now.
No, it wouldn't be approved by health and safety.
They were all happy memories, really, just things to laugh at afterwards.
It took a while for you to feel much difference from the war, because you'd still got rationing.
That's right. I mean, things then were rationed for quite a while. We had a little shop near where we lived in Droylsden. Rationing was on for quite a long time, as I say, but I can still remember that. Tea, sugar, butter, marge, lard, bacon, eggs and cheese. They were the four things that were really rationed.
And I gather you've been guest of honour at quite a few different events, haven't you, over the years, am I right?
I could show you just one or two pictures if you'd like to.
The Guild had an event and she was a VIP there.
Yes.
So which group is that?
Town's Women's Guild. Cheadle Hume. She said, Stand up. So I stood up and they all, what did they sing?
They were singing, She's a Jolly Good Fellow. There's pictures here of when you went to that thing at Romilly.
I know this gentleman, but tell me about it. Go on.
You know it?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, well, it was this concert and Fairy band was playing there. It was in the Forum
in Romilly, yeah.
So this gentleman was only 99.
Yeah, this is Jeff Brown, isn't it?
Is that his name?
Yes, Jeff Brown, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, he flew Lancasters.
Yeah.
He was on
Well,
Lancasters.
yes, he was.
He was a mid-upper gunner.
He couldn't have been in that long during the war.
No, I think it was about the last year of the war. So that was VJ Day, was it? Yeah, it would have been, wouldn't it?
Yes, it is. I've got a magazine there from it.
Lovely. These, Nancy, I think these are from the event you came to at Woodford.
So I was in a wheelchair. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
those are the
with those two
military police there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the Vulcan Bombay, that one.
That's right. Yes.
And that's the Lancaster. That's the one you were in the back of.
Yes.
Rolling around. Yeah.
That's me in front of the Spitfire. But there again, you see, I always say, well, I didn't do anything. I didn't fly a Spitfire or one thing or another, you know.
It was such a pleasure and such an honour to have that conversation with Nancy. And when she says that she did nothing really, how many 17-year-olds have been faced with the life-changing situation of leaving a close-knit family environment to undertake what was vital war work, never knowing which of the four corners of the UK you might be sent to next. Admittedly, staying on the home front, but with all the dangers that went with that in terms of attack from the skies. How many 17-year-olds have had lifts on a petrol tanker, not in the cab, but hanging on for grim life in the open air onto the superstructure? And how many could recall the sheer excitement of a ride on a Lancaster, rolling about in the back, no safety belt, indeed no seat, no in-flight service, and barely a toilet? It was a truly remarkable set of experiences. In line with her unfailing modesty, Nancy didn't bother to tell me about her King's Commendation for Brave Conduct Award. I think that gives us a perfect reason, when the weather's warmer, to invite her down to our studio at Woodford to continue our conversation. Indeed, we're planning a little surprise for her if she's able to come and visit us. That's all from this episode of the Avro Heritage Museum podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to Nancy as much as I did. Don't forget that if you've enjoyed the podcast, there will be a facility on your device to share it with other people that you think might also find it interesting. Do join us for the next one, but in the meantime, take care of yourselves and of each other. Bye-bye for now.
Make sure you follow us in your podcast app to ensure that you don't miss out on future episodes.